This is your daily dose of all things royal. This week, Time magazine decided to hand Prince Harry a new shiny trophy. They put him at the very top of their brand new leaders list in sports, all because he started the Invictus Games for wounded veterans. Now, the key word here is veterans. The Invictus people posted a proud little message online saying they were honored. Harry told Time the games have literally saved lives. Veterans, he said, have come up to him and told him, if it wasn't for Invictus, I would have unalived myself. That's the glossy, self-congratulatory version the public is supposed to swallow. But, as Paula Froelich reports from NEWSNATION in her investigation, the reality is far more disgusting and infuriating. Scott Snow was one of the faces they used to sell the 2023 Invictus Games in Dusseldorf. We're talking about a decorated Canadian Navy diver and Special Forces veteran. They put him in their official Team Canada promo video like some kind of hero mascot. He went to Germany, he competed, and then he came home broken. And Invictus? They ghosted him. Snow had already had 14 surgeries from his service injuries and was fighting PTSD when he stepped off the plane. He only went because he wanted his 2 young daughters to see their dad in uniform one last time. This story is so, heartbreaking. On September 10, 2023, during his very first wheelchair rugby match, he reached up for a ball, tipped backwards in his chair, and there was no restraint strap. The kind they always used in training. He fell hard, finished the game on pure adrenaline. The on-site medical staff apparently gave him a quick look, noted a possible concussion, and just sent him home. That was it. No real care, no real protection, just go on your way. Anyway, back in Canada, there was tingling that began in his hands, and his physiotherapist took one look and told him to get an x-ray immediately. It showed he had a fractured neck, fractured lower back, torn quadricep, head trauma. 2 surgeries so far, a third one probably coming because a screw in his spine is already shifting. He spent months in a retirement home because the proper rehab center had no beds left. This guy is only 43 years old, living on a fentanyl patch for pain, and had to stop physiotherapy and massage because he can't afford it as a single dad. His 13 and 11-year-old daughters barely get to do normal things with their father anymore. And here's what makes this whole thing so utterly disgusting and disgraceful. According to Paula Froelich's reporting, the Invictus Games, which is a charity that is built specifically for injured veterans, didn't bother to have proper insurance for the athletes. Instead, serving Canadian military members would have been covered completely. But for veterans like Snow, no. They got some 2-line note in their paperwork telling them to just get travel insurance, and that's what Snow did. Turns out travel insurance doesn't cover injuries from international sporting events. Who knew? Apparently, not the people running this multi-million-dollar operation. When Snow tried to get help afterwards, the Invictus doors slammed shut. They stopped answering his messages, and Prince Harry's office never replied back to him at all. The organization eventually bought an insurance policy, but only for future games, not retroactive. Not for the guy they already broke. And you know what? It's shameful. It's hypocritical. It's the exact opposite of everything Invictus claims it's supposed to stand for. It really is disgusting. And the surprising thing about this story is that this veteran Snow isn't even suing Invictus. He's suing the Canadian government because he doesn't want to go after the organization because he still believes in it. He just wanted someone, anyone, to pick up the phone and say, "We're sorry, we'll make this right." He sent emails to Veteran Affairs, to Invictus, and straight to Prince Harry's office, but nothing. He met with Canadian Invictus leadership once, then silence again, complete abandonment. While all of this was going on, the 2023 Dusseldorf Games raised over $40 million. Covering proper athlete insurance for an event that size would have cost somewhere between $275,000 and $1 million. A drop in the bucket. They had the money. They just didn't spend it on people they were supposedly there to protect. Yeah, I think we know where some of that money went, but that doesn't even factor in the amount of money that Netflix gave to film their propaganda for war called Heart of Invictus, remember? Veteran Snow's message to Harry is simple and devastating. If you make a mistake, say you're sorry and make it right. The same thing he teaches his own kids. They got insurance for the next games. Now do it for the veterans who already got hurt. But of course, no apology has come, no outreach, nothing. He still says he would recommend the games to other struggling veterans, the training, the camaraderie, the purpose, but he wants them to go in with their eyes wide open, read the fine print. Because right now, there's a two-tiered system. The people on stage getting the glory and the awards, and the ones left picking up the pieces when the cameras are gone. Scott Snow feels abandoned, and after everything he gave, his body, his service, his willingness to show up and represent, that feeling is completely understandable. It's also completely unacceptable. It looks like this lawsuit is now sitting in Canadian court, but it hasn't moved. Prince Harry's people and Invictus still aren't commenting, just like how they aren't commenting on African parks. One man got a Time magazine paid award this week for his leadership. This other man is still trying to figure out how he's going to walk, parent, and pay for the damage done in the name of that same leadership. Yeah, the hypocrisy and the exploitation here, to me, makes me want to vomit. The lack of basic care and accountability is truly infuriating. And the silence from the people who built their brand on supporting these veterans, well, it's, is disgustingly on brand for brand Sussex. Like, I get really angry when I see stories like this because these veterans fought for our freedoms, the same freedoms that this jackass is trying to take away. So when I see stories like this, we all should be rightfully upset. Because what are they doing with all this money if they're not giving it to the veterans? Obviously, it's got to be going somewhere. Now, here is what I find troubling about Invictus, is that they're operating as if it's like the next Olympics, where they make this announcement like 4 years out in advance as to who's going to get the next bid. And every year, the budget seems to be getting bigger and bigger, with a heavy emphasis now on Ukraine. We've seen this consecutively since 2023. What I find really bizarre about all of this is you have an active war going on in Ukraine, and you have active soldiers leaving the battlefield to go and compete in Harry's games. Yeah, it's a little bit different with Israel. When you look at Israel, those are veterans. They're not actively fighting in Gaza. You have active members leaving the battlefield to go and play some games. So the question is, how serious is this war? Yeah, is there something going on there that we're not aware about? Like, are they exchanging gifts of some sort? At this point, with all of this deceit and fraud that we are uncovering, we should be questioning everything. But moving on, let's talk about this award for a second. So this year, Time 100 honors Prince Harry as one of the most influential people in sports. Now, I'm not going to go through this BS propaganda, but I'd like to remind everybody that in 2024, I think it was December, Harry received Time 100 Most Influential in Climate. And then back in 2020, him and his wife received Time 100 Most Influential. Who remembers how this cover got mocked for days? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we have to look at who owns Time magazine. And that would be Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff. If you didn't know, Mark Benioff pumped in a lot of money into Better Up in 2021, same year that Prince Harry was brought on as the chimpo. You might not recall, but Mark Benioff was also at the UK state dinner back in 2025, seen there. And then Mark Benioff was at the White House during King Charles's visit back at the end of April. As you can see here, this is a bit of an awkward exchange. there is Jared Kushner, I think, talking to his father, and it looks like Mark Benioff gets completely ignored. Who knows what that was about, but it does look quite awkward, doesn't it? Could it be maybe the White House knows what he was up to back in 2020? If you were around back then, Murky Meg was deplatformed for posting a meme that Mark Benioff had retweeted. And immediately after, the Sussex Squad went into complete meltdown. And then within hours, Murky Meg had an IP ban, meaning that she was never allowed to go back on to Twitter. This is what happened. This is what was going on to us back then. And this was in 2021 when this happened. Not only do I have this post, but I also have Angry Tina from the Sussex Squad podcast saying that they knew that Murky Meg's account was going to go down because of Mark Benioff retweeting her post. So this was a coordinated and calculated campaign to pull Murky Meg down. So now the big question is, was Mark Benioff a part of getting Murky Meg taken down? Like, was he supposed to be the one to trigger this off by reposting it, giving it visibility for then the Sussex Squad to go and mass report? I don't know. I wouldn't put it past these people, because back in 2020, it was again Time magazine giving a platform to Harry and Meghan, as well as Renee DiResta, Maria Ressa. You have Tristan and Safiya Noble during that Time 100, thing right before they, did that commercial on the bench talking about, going and voting, and that it's the most important election and stopping misinformation and divisiveness. Well, you know that they were campaigning and pushing for Joe Biden. I mean, does it surprise you? Mark Benioff was a big-time leftist liberal who pumped in $500,000 into Barack Obama's re-election campaign. Funny enough, after that dark period in time, Time magazine published this article that I'm sure they would like people to forget, which was pretty much a self-confession of the coup to steal the election under the guise of saving America from Trump. This article really did age like spoiled milk, because they go through the tactics that they use, such as mobilizing all the groups, capitalizing and taking advantage of the BLM riots and George Floyd passing away, as well as the disinformation on social media and getting the social media platforms to take information down. I mean, they say it right here. The solution, she concluded, was to pressure platforms to enforce their rules by removing content or accounts that spread disinformation and by more aggressively policing it in the first place. So, do I think Mark Benioff was a part of this? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, some of you may recall back in January this year, David Sachs and Mark Benioff sat down to talk about AI and, the future of where tech is going. And Mark Benioff asked about repealing Section 230. Obviously, this is something the globalists are very interested in taking away, because they know it will clamp down on speech on social media. And that was for the longest time their position in trying to get rid of it. So these platforms would become more liable for people to go after and sue. If you notice, all of these cases that are popping up pertaining to child safety is now going the route of lawfare, but positioning these platforms as a product, because they know that they're not going to be able to get rid of Section 230. And this is the reason why.
And yes, you can point to some downsides of that, but on the whole, I think it's been very positive. And what I worry about is if 230 gets reformed and gets to be more restrictive, it's going to lead to much greater censorship. Already corporations have been taking down a lot of content that, I think it's now much better under President Trump, but under the last administration, you saw an epidemic of shadow banning, deplatforming, when someone expressed an opinion that went against the sort of conventional wisdom or the powers that be. Saw a lot of censorship during COVID. Things that are now recognized as being true could not be said without the user, like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya was kicked off X for the Great Barrington Declaration. So you look back on those things and say, gee, that was a really dangerous period where people were censored too much. We've now moved out of it, but what I worry about is you take away Section 230 protection, and now because of simple corporate risk aversion, these sites are really going to clamp down, and people aren't going to be able to express themselves in the same way.
So yeah, in my opinion, I do think he was responsible for what we were seeing happening on social media, especially with Murky Meg. I do think that there was a level of awareness of what Harry and Meghan were doing to us. Yeah, I think there's a lot more going on here with the relationship between the royals and Mark Benioff, if you ask me. Now that we're looking at this and we're coming to terms that there's absolutely no way that Charles didn't know what his son was doing over here, at least in 2020. Like I said, it was all hands on deck globally to ensure that Trump didn't get back into office. So why wouldn't it make sense for Harry to come over here and pretend that he's trying to find freedom when he really was deeply involved in all of this stuff? You take that and you factor in what was in the Peter Mandelson files with the internal conversation between Ollie Robbins and Peter Mandelson around Charles's hesitation with inviting Trump for the second state visit. He was a bit miffed over the way that Zelensky was treated when he showed up to the White House. Well, I'm sorry. We don't want to give any more money. We don't want to be supporting and taking care of these wealthy billionaires. We just don't want to do it. And given that Zelensky doesn't want peace, he wants the war machine to keep going, he had no business going to the White House and behaving the way that he did. So if Charles was mad over that, well, then what does that tell you? That tells you all we need to know about our so-called special relationship. And it just makes the case even stronger that Harry was sent over here to help with preventing Donald Trump getting back into office. Now that the mission has failed and Trump is back, is it any surprise that we're now starting to see these little seeds being planted of Charles expressing his backing for the veteran-focused sporting event? Come on. They're really trying to find a way for this guy to come back. All fingers are pointing in that direction. But getting back to this stupid award, do I think that this was a favor to the royal family? You bet I do. It's all hands on deck for rehabilitating Harry's reputation because he's supposed to be going back next month for the 1 year to go Birmingham Invictus Games. Now, in addition to helping with the optics, I do think that this is serving another purpose. They're going to be announcing shortly where the 2029 Invictus Games is going to be. And given that Harry's reputation in the United States is in the toilet, I'm guessing that this is all part of keeping the optics, or at least trying to make the optics look like Harry is recognized in the sports field and he is providing some value to the community. And I think it was deliberate that they chose this American award because it's likely the Invictus Games will go to San Diego in 2029. And the reason why I say that is because they have the website already set up, Invictus Games San Diego 2029. There's no Invictus Games South Korea 2029 or Denmark 2029 set up. In addition to this website, there's other signs that show that this is going in the direction of San Diego. Well, for starters, it's California. So I'm guessing Gavin Newsom has earmarked some money, and money is being put aside for this because how else would they have made it to the finals if they didn't have some type of estimate of how much money they would be bringing to the table to give to this organization? How much money will be given from the state. Like I told you before, this is where Harry and Meghan are going to be pulling their money until the Democrats get back into power, or at least try to get back into power. And I do believe that they're thinking that the Democrats will get back into power in 2028. And the scary thought about this is that if indeed Gavin Newsom does run for president in 2028 and does win and gets into the White House, then without a doubt, Invictus Games will become one giant money laundering machine. That's why I believe, in my opinion, the PR machine purchased this award now so they can use it in a couple of weeks when they announce the host city for the 2029 games. If it is indeed San Diego, then obviously they're going to use this Time 100, since California knows all about Time 100, because that's where Mark Benioff is from, to reinforce why these games should be held in San Diego and that Prince Harry is doing a good thing and, his reputation continues to keep, being rehabilitated. And I do believe that the palace is behind this. Another thing that's really odd is that the organization that is going to put on this show, like how in Vancouver it was a veterans organization, True Patriot, This time for San Diego, it's not even a veteran nonprofit. It is a nonprofit that is designed to generate business between America and the UK. So this is the organization who submitted the bid for Invictus 2029. It has nothing to do with veterans. It has a mission to foster strong economic ties, trade relationships, and cultural exchange between the United Kingdom and the U.S., with a specific focus on the vibrant business landscape of San Diego. We aim to create a platform that nurtures collaboration, innovation, and growth for businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. Nothing to do with veterans. So Andy Solar is the secretary of this British Business Council in San Diego. He works for a company called Renew, which deals in SEO and marketing. But interestingly enough, Andy Solar's LinkedIn, it shows that Andy Solar is the co-chair of Invictus Games San Diego 2029. So it's interesting that not only is there a website domain set up, when South Korea and Denmark don't even have that. It's interesting that this guy has on his LinkedIn profile, as if it's already been decided. And then on top of it, Andy Solar has been making the rounds over the last couple months, doing podcasts, as well as being featured on local news segments in San Diego.
Well, San Diego is on the short list of candidates that could host the 2029 Invictus Games.
The Invictus Games Foundation is in San Diego today, and Jason Austell is live at the Navy SEAL Museum, speaking with them with more on what makes this decision come our way. Jason, how you doing?
I love it how there's like the CIA logo in the background with President Barack Obama. It's not tied to it, but kind of ironic.
Hey, good. Yeah, always great to be here at the SEAL Museum. Right now, they're having a kind of a closed-door session. There's 12 people, I think. But we have Andy Solar here, and you're on the bid committee, right? Tell us about what exactly is happening today.
Okay, so San Diego are now down to the last 3 cities in the world that can get the bid to win Invictus Games for 2029. The bid committee have already been to South Korea, they've already been to Denmark, they're here in San Diego. It's San Diego's chance to shine. We're showing them the best of San Diego. They're in that meeting room right now listening to what we've got.
And what is the process going to be like?
Well, they got here yesterday. We've already rolled out the red carpet for us. Everybody's gathered around. We went to the convention center. We went on the Midway. The Admiral even gave us his barge, and we went out to tour San Diego Harbor. And then our friends at the Padres really knocked it out of the park yesterday. We had a great time with them. They're really seeing a good side of San Diego right now.
And when will a decision be made?
The decision will be made in July. We've still got a little bit of work to do. We've got to fly to London in June and make a final presentation, but they'll announce it in July this year.
Okay, and it'll be very exciting for our city.
It'll be fantastic for our city. Our city's got such a rich tradition of wellness, recovery, respect for our veterans. And I think to bring the games to San Diego will just showcase who we are as a city.
Awesome. Andy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Appreciate it. So anyway, that's what's going on right now. They won't decide till July, but as Andy said, the city is really rolling out the red carpet, hooked them up with a Padres game and a win.
Yeah.
So that helps too. So we'll find out what happens. We'll find out in July. Paul, Lauren, back to you.
Jason, I'm curious if you could ask him. I think everybody in San Diego knows why it would be the perfect spot to win for hosting the Invictus Games, but what could possibly be on the downside for having the Invictus Games here from their perspective?
Would there be anything on the downside from their perspective of having the Invictus Games here?
No, none at all. No, they love to come here. They love they can see what if we have it on America. First of all, it will supersize any event that we do. I say we. I'm now an American 36 years. No, I think that we'll just amplify the message. We'll bring a bit of Hollywood to it, and no, I think they'd love to have it in America. I really do.
Well, there you go.
Very high possibility that San Diego has been chosen. Back in December of 2025, Harry gave a speech in Santa Monica, but nobody questioned why he was speaking at the British American Business Council. Well, now we know. Now we know why he was there. At the time, everybody was making a stink about him saying something really small and trivial, but that managed to dominate the news headlines. And, people ran off making fun of Harry for, now doing these events for money. That's not the case. This American Council or British Council is tied to this Invictus Games 2029, which likely is going to see American taxpayer dollars going to this event. I would be infuriated if I was living in California, because if this ends up to be true, you can bet at least $50 million in taxpayer money will somehow find its way going to this fool. Look, I'm all for helping the veterans, but the United States has the Warrior Games. We don't need Invictus Games, in my opinion, especially if money is not going to the veterans. You know what I mean? What we need to do is we need to contact Brian Mast. He's a Republican in Florida who is a veteran and passionate about adaptive sport, but I don't think he's going to like hearing what's going on with Invictus Games. Brian Mast has been trying to pass a bill called the Games Act to expand eligibility for veterans participating in the Warrior Games and Invictus Games. And the bill would actually allow for more funds to go towards supporting the veterans in competing. As it says here in the last paragraph, Congress already authorizes the DoD to spend appropriated funds on military adaptive sports programs, including the DoD Warrior Games and Invictus Games. As currently written, it states that adaptive sports programming is for any member of the armed forces who is eligible to participate due to an injury, illness, or wound incurred in the line of duty and is on the temporary disability retirement list or the permanent disability retirement list, but only within 1 year of separation. The Games Act strikes that condition to allow veterans to participate regardless of the time passed since their medical retirement. Lifting this restraint supports all interested wounded veterans for Warrior and Invictus Games sponsorship. This bill will expand enrollment in the Warrior and Invictus Games, and it affirms support for injured veterans in recovery. He's the guy that we need to get the attention of, because it's pretty clear in that paragraph where it states their understanding of Invictus Games intended for injured, disabled veterans for recovery, rehabilitation. What we're seeing now with Invictus, we're seeing Tom, Dick, and Harry being able to compete, right? Some don't even have any kind of physical disability, but citing PTSD. I mean, everybody pretty much could cite PTSD for these games, but is it really fair to those who are really injured? No, it's not. So here's what we got to do. It's real easy. Go to Brian Mast's website and send him an email. Include everything that we talk about here in what Harry has been doing. And this exploitation of veterans for his profit, as well as for his PR, needs to stop. So if money is being allocated, or if these games are seen as supposed to be helping injured veterans, let him know that it's not. If you need to, include the link to this video, include the link to Lauren the Insider's video, and include the link to Paula Froelich's video. And please don't forget to mention the most important thing of all, that this UK prince has been on US soil these past 6 years, undermining this great country and the will of the American people. It's unacceptable that we have this foreign national on U.S. soil who has been working to subvert and erode our First and Fourth Amendment constitutional rights. These are freedoms that our military, who have given their lives unselfishly to protect and defend. It's unacceptable that we have this foreign adversary here trying to take those freedoms away. It's unacceptable. And that's why I think it's important we now start using our voices, and one way is this route. So let's get to it, folks. Let me know what you think. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
It was such a fraud.